At an old farmhouse in the countryside, Lucky and his friend were returning to the farm when a large truck suddenly pulled into the yard. As they approached, Lucky noticed that all the other animals were calmly walking into the truck. Confused, he rushed over and demanded to know what was happening, but no one could give him a clear answer. Determined to understand the situation, Lucky walked over to Napoleon, who told him to read the words written on the side of the truck. Lucky looked closely and read aloud, "Laughter House," causing the others to burst into laughter as they continued moving toward the truck's door. Believing it was some kind of trip, Lucky excitedly went over to Snowball and told him they were all going on a vacation. Shocked by the announcement, Snowball quickly moved to the side of the truck to see it for himself, but when he looked carefully, he realized the sign actually read Slaughterhouse, and fear instantly filled his face. One of the men suddenly grabbed Snowball and tossed him into the truck. Once inside, Snowball urgently warned the others that they were not heading to a laughter house for a vacation, but to a slaughterhouse. Fear quickly spread among the animals as panic filled the truck. Snowball told them that the only way to survive was to stand together and fight for their freedom. Moments later, the horse delivered a powerful kick that burst the truck's door wide open. The animals immediately rushed out, desperately trying to escape. One of the men attempted to spray water at them, but the horse charged forward and stopped him. At the same time, a few other men tried to capture Lucky, but Napoleon bravely rammed into them and managed to free him. Snowball then kicked a pile of grass toward the men, causing them to stumble and fall. After the chaos, the frightened men finally gave up, jumped back into their truck, and drove away, leaving the farm in the hands of the animals once again. Meanwhile, a drone was seen capturing the entire incident on camera. It flew back toward headquarters, and after a while, it entered the building and landed at Mrs. Frida's desk. The footage immediately began playing for her as she watched closely. We then returned to the animals' farm, where everyone was seen celebrating their newly gained freedom. The next morning, the rooster came out and called the animals together for a meeting. Snowball stood before them and explained that they needed proper rules in order to manage the farm effectively. The animals all agreed. Snowball then began reading out the farm rules while Lucky wrote them down on a large metallic container. After the rules were read out, the meeting continued. The other animals agreed with the plan. Later, Lucky was seen trying to milk a car, attempting to get milk from it. After that, all the animals worked together on the farmland, with the smaller animals planting seeds while the others cultivated the soil. When they finished, rain began to fall, forcing them to take a short break. A few months later, the crops had fully grown, and the animals returned to harvest them. After the harvest, Snowball announced that half of the produce would be stored for the winter. Napoleon tried to object, but most of the animals supported Snowball's decision. Later, they were seen drinking milk. Napoleon called Lucky over and introduced him to Jones's dogs. Lucky was pleased to see them, and Napoleon offered him a bucket of milk, trying to tempt him into breaking the farm's rules. Afterwards, Lucky carried the milk to Boxer. Boxer explained that he felt uncomfortable drinking milk that wasn't his and reminded him that it went against the farm rules. Following their conversation, Lucky began to reconsider his actions and had a change of heart. He carried the milk back to the farm and shared it with the other animals. Afterward, he returned and lay down beside Boxer. The next day, the rooster came out and called for a meeting, but the animals appeared weak and exhausted. Meanwhile, Snowball and Lucky were seen discussing ways to extract milk from the cows more efficiently. Snowball then took Lucky into the farmer's house, where they went through the farmer's old book. Lucky reminded him that it went against the rules, but Snowball insisted it was the only practical solution. After that, they began constructing a watermill. Once the building was completed, Boxer dragged the heavy structure toward the waterfall while Lucky followed behind him. Napoleon arrived and asked what they were doing. Lucky explained that they were building a watermill. Napoleon then questioned whether the other animals were aware of it, and Lucky replied that Snowball planned to inform them after it was finished. Later, Napoleon called a meeting where Snowball explained what they had been building. However, Napoleon twisted the situation against her, claiming she was becoming too controlling. He also accused Snowball of entering the farmer's house. Gradually, the other animals turned against Snowball, and Napoleon stepped forward as the leader of the uprising. He led the animals to the grain storage. While Snowball tried unsuccessfully to stop them from consuming the grain, Napoleon then ordered Snowball to leave the farm, telling her to go on a vacation, and sent dogs after her. With no other option, Snowball surrendered and slowly walked away. Lucky ran after her, begging her not to go. She reminded him that all animals are equal before finally leaving the farm. After she was gone, Napoleon opened the grain store, and the animals rushed in, playing and feeding on the grain. Later that day, a banker arrived and warned them that they needed to start paying for the farm, or the bank would repossess the land. After delivering the message, he left, leaving the animals with a serious problem to consider. After he left, Napoleon and the other pigs gathered to discuss how they could raise money. They eventually agreed to sell some of the farm's produce in exchange for cash. The next day, the animals set up a farm market, and humans arrived to purchase goods from them. The visitors bought food items and paid with real money in return. The following day, the banker returned and attempted to place a sign on the farm, but the animals stopped him. They pushed a bucket filled with money toward him instead. He took only what he needed, returned the rest, and then drove away. Later that evening, the pigs began debating what to do with the money, and Napoleon suggested they spend it. Soon after, they were seen entering Pilkington's building to go shopping. The humans were surprised to see pigs shopping like ordinary customers. Meanwhile, Mrs. Frida watched Napoleon on a screen, noticing him admiring the luxury items. Napoleon also became uncomfortable when he realized the humans were speaking negatively about him and the other animals. After shopping, they returned to the farm with their purchases. They tried to turn on the television, but it wouldn't work. Lucky explained that there was no electricity. Napoleon later gathered the animals and spoke to them about building a watermill. The animals immediately got to work, struggling together as they pushed the heavy structure up the hill. After a long effort, they finally reached the site and successfully positioned the watermill beneath the waterfall. That night, the pigs were seen celebrating inside the farmer's house while the other animals remained outside. The next day, Napoleon arrived driving a red Ferrari, drifting it around the farm. Curious, Lucky asked how he managed to get the car, and Napoleon explained that Mrs. Frida had given him a credit card, allowing him to buy anything on credit. Mrs. Frida then introduced herself to the animals and expressed her satisfaction in working with them. Later, they were all seen partying inside the farmhouse, while the other animals were left outside. Meanwhile, the grain storage was empty, leaving the rest of the animals without food. The following day, the animals began to revolt, kicking and damaging parts of the house in frustration. Napoleon came out and tried to calm them down, but they refused to stop. Just then, a sack of grain suddenly fell from above. The animals saw the falling grain and quickly rushed to eat it. Afterward, Napoleon was seen inside the farmhouse complaining about various issues and blaming others for the problems on the farm. Later, he visited Mrs. Frida at her office, where she explained her plan to build a water dam that would reduce electricity costs for her farm. She invited Napoleon to partner with her and allow a similar project on their farm. In exchange, she promised him free grain and a long-term business partnership. Tempted by the offer, Napoleon agreed. The next day, tractors arrived on the farm, causing panic as the animals scattered. Boxer, however, bravely stood in front of one of the tractors. Napoleon then called a farm meeting and spoke to the animals about the endless opportunities the dam would bring. This time, the animals were not convinced. After some time, Napoleon eventually managed to persuade them. Later, they demolished the watermill and began construction work for the new dam project. After a long period of construction, the dam was finally completed. Mrs. Frida and Napoleon walked out together, pleased with the result, and later celebrated their success. Lucky entered the area hoping to share urgent news, but he was shocked and disappointed to discover that Napoleon had effectively sold out every animal to Mrs. Frida. Panicked, Lucky immediately ran for his life as Napoleon's dogs chased him. He managed to escape through the gate while the dogs got stuck behind it. He then rushed toward Boxer's quarters and slipped inside through an opening. Inside, he found Benjamin and broke down in tears, asking for forgiveness. Benjamin told him that forgiveness should not come from him, but from Boxer. Hearing this, Lucky promised to make things right. Later, he stood before the other animals and apologized, admitting that he had turned his back on them. He explained that he now understood the situation clearly and knew better. He told the animals it was time to take back their farm and demand that Napoleon leave. Since he had broken the rules, the other animals agreed with him. Meanwhile, Napoleon was on stage delivering a speech while the humans cheered him on. In the middle of the event, Lucky and Puff hacked into the screen and replaced the broadcast with random dancing chicks. Napoleon became furious and grabbed the remote, trying to shut it down, but it wouldn't respond. His assistant attempted to disconnect the system, but the wire overheated and caught fire. The flames spread along the cable until they reached the elevator, where fireworks were stored. The fireworks ignited instantly, triggering a massive chain of explosions. The blasts were so powerful that they cracked the dam. Realizing the dam was about to collapse, everyone began running for safety. Lucky and Puff quickly escaped the area, while Napoleon rushed back to his car. Moments later, the dam finally broke, and water flooded the entire place. After some time, the other animals managed to reach a safe location. Meanwhile, Napoleon stepped out of his car and fell into the water. He managed to climb onto a floating container, where he began blaming Lucky for betraying him. Lucky responded that Napoleon was a cheat and a liar, and that he should leave the farm for breaking all the rules. Angered, Napoleon suddenly attacked him, but Lucky dodged the strike. Napoleon then grabbed him by the neck, but Lucky fought back with a kick, and they both fell into the water. Underwater, Lucky managed to break free, while Napoleon became trapped beneath a sinking container. Lucky quickly swam to the surface and escaped the water. In the end, the other animals were left safe and overjoyed.